this is shaping up to be one of the weirdest years in gaming. And in one of my last videos, well, my last video, the statement was made that I love, which is this year is the year of the library, not the year of PlayStation, Xbox, or anything else. And I love that. This is the year of library. But today I want to explain or talk about something a little bit different. Although I think that library is important, and library is what we call our backlogs, because backlog is stressful and library is exciting. What I want to talk about is this: how I believe that the only two consoles you'll need moving forward is a Steam Deck, so Valve, and a Nintendo Switch or the Super Switch. I believe that based on what's happening, and I'm going to give you, I think, 8 reasons that the only companies that you need to actually give money to for their hardware is going to be Valve and Nintendo. So let's start off with the number one most, I guess, most visible and realistic reason: portables. I believe strongly that portables are indeed the future of gaming. We're seeing it across the board. Thank you, Sora. Just hang out there for a second. Every single company has been investing money in some sort of portable. Now, the pioneers of it all were, of course, Nintendo with, of course, 3DS, DS, Game Boy, and stuff like that. They really did it. Sega, you guys say, oh, don't forget Sega. Whatever, man. Sega didn't last. Game Gear never stuck around. It was always Nintendo. But they're not the only ones anymore. In fact, the first company to really bring portables for their consoles out was Xbox. Yes, I think it was 2022, maybe? It wasn't 2023. They partnered with Logitech to launch G Cloud. Now, I don't know if they were involved in it directly, but the G Cloud, the Logitech G Cloud, was very much so advertised as the Xbox X Cloud device. You are to use that device to play your Xbox games via xCloud. Whether it was a good experience, at the time it wasn't, or not, that was what it was advertised to do. And so portables are important. Nintendo brought the Switch out in 2017 and proved to the world that we like this. We like this form factor. We may not like the buttons and the stick layout and stuff like that, but we like this. And then when Steam was like, hey, we have a better version, and they launched their LCD version of the Steam Deck, we very much so liked it. And then companies that don't, well, they do, I guess, basically with laptops, Lenovo, Asus, even MSI were like, well, we want to be a part of this. It is undeniable that the future for gaming hardware is somewhere in the portable realm. So are you going to land on this? How are you going to play your portable games? I think if you want to stick with the best versions of all of the hardware, as it stands now, it's going to be somewhere with Valve and with Nintendo. Valve being the easiest, most user-friendly entry-level device you can find, and then Nintendo being more importantly, the exclusives. So that's number 2. When it comes to video games as a whole, when you look at getting a console, for instance, you look at the console from the standpoint of the exclusives. Which exclusives can I play on these devices? With Xbox, it would have been Halo or Forza or Gears of War or something along those lines. With PlayStation, I guess timed-wise, it would be something like Final Fantasy or Ratchet & Clank, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, those types of games. But as time has gone on, we've seen those games come over to Windows or PC for that matter. Xbox partnering is Microsoft, right? And so they have their PC Game Pass. You can play Halo. I can play Halo on this. You can play, Horizon Zero Dawn now on this. Ghost of Tsushima on this. These titles that were strictly exclusives to the industry or to their respective consoles in the industry are now available on something like a Steam Deck. Now, is Ghost of Tsushima going to be prettier on the PlayStation? Oh, and I didn't mention, PlayStation has their portable, the PlayStation Portal, which I believe to be a great device, but it's a device. It's not really a portable. And of course, Nintendo with theirs. So is it going to be better, Ghost of Tsushima, on a PlayStation 5? Most certainly. Will it be better on a PlayStation 5 Pro? Absolutely. But if you have a PC, which we're not talking about PC right now because, I mean, really that's going to have the best visuals, but if you have a PC or access to one, you can play it at better visuals than a PlayStation for that matter. But these titles are no longer staying exclusive. If you have a little bit of patience, which I think we are learning that is more important than anything else, you'll be able to play these games eventually on the Steam Deck. But there is one device, there is one company, there is one brand that those games aren't releasing on PC. They haven't released on PC, and in the past multiple decades of this very company, I think 40 years of this company doing their thing in the video game space, they haven't released their games on PC, and that is Nintendo. And so to maximize your gaming library, it would be necessary for you to have a Nintendo device for the exclusives. Now, if you're not someone who cares about Zelda, Mario, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, or Kirby, shoutouts to Samus, maybe that won't be necessary. If you look at Nintendo games and say, oh, they're too kiddie for me, then don't even consider it. But I strongly believe that moving into this next phase of gaming, whether it's Gen 10 or whatever you want to call it, Valve and Nintendo are going to get you there. And so let's talk about the next thing in this, and that is price. When it comes to getting the most bang for your buck, it's important to factor in how many different, 3, so that's going to be green, how many different devices you have, how many different libraries, and we'll get to that in a second, you have. And so for pricing, it's important to reduce the amount of gear you have. Starting with these, you have something that is somewhere hovering around, give or take, $500 to $600. Let's go high end, $600. And something here hovering around $350 to $400. Let's go high end, $400 with whatever next device they have. For $1,000, you have 2 portable devices that grant you access to, I would argue, probably 95% of the games available to gamers right now on the market. And that right there covers most of your bases. You have the Nintendo library, which you have to have their subscription service to do certain things, but their subscription service alone doesn't grant you access in a false library that you would expect from something like Xbox and PlayStation, which is going to be one of the points. This is just mainly an online service, terrible, but hopefully it gets better, and some of their retro titles, which you could easily do and use something like this, but another conversation. Emulation, don't worry, we're going to get to that someday. And then with this, you have access to everything else for far less, and you have online access for free, and you have all your cloud saves for free, and you have family sharing for free, and you have all of these things included in this device. Very, very user-friendly and financially responsible. $1,000, 2 of these, done. Most games. If you wanted to get all of the devices, you would be spending twice that for a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, and one of the Nintendo devices. You'd be spending an additional $1,000 plus $400, that's $1,400, plus some sort of PC playing machine, that's $600, and now you're sitting at $2,000. You can cut it in half and just get these 2 and you're good to go. Does Nintendo play the best? No, they don't. They run at 30 frames per second for some of their own AAA titles. Is that okay? I think so. I think it's fine. I think it's okay. But the Steam Deck will get you more than enough power that you need. Now, what I was saying is point number 4, subscription services. I personally think that subscription services are the bane of the gaming existence. They are ruining gaming as a whole, and when it comes to Game Pass, as well as now PlayStation Plus and all these things, it grants you this false sense of security, or this false sense of gaming library, when in reality you're spending hundreds and eventually thousands of dollars on a service that gets you nothing more than nothing, absolutely nothing. With these 2 devices, you at least have ownership of your games. Now, you can very well own your games on Xbox and PlayStation, fine, that's cool. But if you're looking to the future of library, if you're looking to the future of your gaming ownership, these will grant you actually far better ownership than both Xbox and PlayStation combined. Here, let's talk about it. First, on the Steam Deck, future-proofing yourself. You have games that you've purchased 10, 15 years ago on Steam still able to be used to this day on the very same device you purchased just a year ago. You don't have to get a retro piece of hardware. You don't have to get an older console to play it. You can just play it here. Some cases it gets upscaled and up-resed. Others, the community does all that work. For instance, Final Fantasy VII, a great game, just runs poorly on PC. Well, the community said, we don't like this. So they decided to completely upscale it. Textures, voice acting, even different quality of life improvements, and you can install that modification yourself on your Steam Deck and play the Seventh Heaven mod. Same thing for Final Fantasy IX, and just make it feel better. All great. All perfectly okay. You don't have to go and rebuy an HD version of it because the community has got you covered. As far as Nintendo's concerned, we can talk about their backwards compatibility, not the best. Their past catalog, also not the best. But I will say this, when it comes to the support for their games, I'm still using a game that was 10, 15 years ago. Now, this itself is a piece of retro hardware that I am using. Yes, I am using an older piece of tech because their games didn't transfer over. Although technically this game I'm playing, which is Majora's Mask, is available to me on this through their online service, but it is what it is. Now, when it comes to the online service itself, the online service is just to grant you access to your games, cloud saves, which I think is such a scam. Cloud saves shouldn't be locked behind a paywall, as well as some of those additional, now when I say your games, I mean your retro titles, the Game Boy, the Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, stuff like that. Those games aren't available anywhere else. You can't purchase them. It's a part of their service. It's a part of the library that's expanding. You can't go out and buy them and own them, which is unfortunate. I wish you could because I totally would. In fact, on their older stuff like the Wii U, you could, and the 3DS, but I digress. This itself, with their online service, is much better utilized as a service, a necessity. And out of all three of them, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo, it is technically the least expensive, being $80 a year for family. Pretty good. Pretty good. Family of 5, I think. My whole family gets to play Nintendo Switch and older games on this. Now, the next point, form factor. When it comes to the use case for me as a father, the form factor is absolutely paramount. The fact that I can stack these two on top of each other and have them in a bag, no problem. They sit on a desk like this. This is my whole gaming, all of my gaming. If you look top down right now, this is the whole gaming unit. Every game that I need is right here on these two devices. Perfectly played at any time. And when I talk about the first point, portable being the future, I think it's not because portable is cool, but it's because portable is convenient. As our lives become busier and busier, as flexibility and location for work becomes more and more of a thing, and separating our workspace, which a lot of us have turned our home space into workspace, from our gaming space is very important. This allows us to do so. If you want to use this on a docked experience, you can do that. If you want to use this in your bed, you can do that. If you want to use this out at a coffee shop, you could do that. The form factor of these alone are incredible. Now, do I think the Lenovo Legion Go is the coolest handheld that exists right now? I certainly do, but it's still impractical in a few ways. One, Windows 11 isn't the most fun to use in handheld form, and the device itself is, for my liking, a little too big. It's cool. It's massive. A little too big. I appreciate at least the form factor of the Steam Deck being somewhat reasonable in its size, even though I think it's the ugliest piece of technology that we have. At least with this upgraded case and thumbsticks, I can look at it and not feel utter disgust. And if you disagree with me, I totally understand. I just think that the Steam Deck looks very, very IBM ThinkPad-y. That's my take on it. That's my take. Next, let's talk about how these companies handle their games and getting them to you. When it comes to library management, that is huge for me. I am such a huge believer that library, as far as trusting the company that owns my library, is huge. If PlayStation and Xbox are going to a strictly digital future, if that's the way that they want to go, I, for one, don't trust them to handle my digital purchases properly because we've seen it years and years over and over again, they will charge you for an upgrade. They'll charge you to upscale. They'll charge you to do this, that, and the other, versus something like Steam. Sure, an HD remaster may be charged, but you can upscale yourself. You can do whatever you need to do on the back end. And as I said before, you can have your library for years and years on end, and it doesn't matter the device you play it on. As long as the performance is there, it'll be able to play the game. I'm playing games that were from like 2005 on my PC. It's pretty cool. That for me is huge. As far as digital is concerned, when it comes to physical, no one can beat Nintendo. Nintendo has always been the best when it came to physical releases. Their cartridges, I believe, are some of the best things out there. I hope the next console continues the cartridge game down, and if they go all digital, it's going to be a real bummer, because I really don't like the all digital aspect of something like a Nintendo Switch, especially because Nintendo, out of the history of all of the devices, doesn't have the best digital management, I would say. And so when it comes to physical purchases for games, I think that Nintendo does it astoundingly. Their games aren't massive. They're getting bigger, but they're not massive. And their cartridges are great. They're super good. As I said, I'm still using a game. This device doesn't have any internet access. It can, but it doesn't. I'm playing the full game on this. Totally fine. No updates required. We're good to go. And in a lot of ways, you can do the same thing with first-party Nintendo titles. While a lot of them do have updates that you can get, you can still play the game off of the cart if you don't have online access. And for one of the last standing devices out there, especially for portability, I don't want to have to sit down and be required to update for 4 hours on end before I play a game. If I didn't update in time, I just still want to be able to play my last save file, which the Nintendo Switch and hopefully the Super Switch carries over. This guy as well, you can still do that. It just says updates necessary, but you don't have to. You can continue playing the old build of it. This grants you access, which is huge, to the most amount of games out there. I don't know if this was 8. I don't know if I got to 8, but I can tell you right now that getting access to games is the most important things. And while I was sold out on Xbox for a couple of years, I'm realizing that the limitations they have and the necessity that they have in the market, limitations high, necessity low. You don't need one to play any of their games. You can play them on this or on a PC. PlayStation, with Square Enix losing money year over year, are opening up their titles to PC because they need to, and we're finding them in the Steam store. And so you can play those games here. Now, let's get to the last thing, price of games. Nintendo Switch, notoriously, highest prices for games. $60 for Breath of the Wild still. That game came out in 2017. Some would say it's ridiculous. Me, I don't care. I know it's going to be $60, so if the game releases day one, and I want to purchase it, I know that by day 473, it's still going to be $60. And if it goes on sale, it might go on sale for at most 15 to 20% off on a good year. Now, what does that do for gaming? Some say, hey, they're overcharging it. I would say no. I think they set expectations. You're going to not miss out on a deal because it's just not going to be sold for less, right? Exactly. When it comes to Steam, it might be a little bit different. A game launches and you go, I'm just going to wait for the sale. Fine, but you can find those anywhere. You can find them on Humble Bundle. You can find them on other websites if you decide that you want to go down the CD key route. You can find sales everywhere. And so building a library on both of these machines ends up becoming more financially in your favor, which is huge when it comes to video games, especially with something like the Steam Deck. Now, can you do this with your Lenovo Legion Go and your ROG Ally? Sure. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to what is the least you need to do the most, I think that the Nintendo Switch or Super Switch and the Steam Deck combo is by and large the best combination that exists in gaming right now. More flexibility and power exists on other machines, but we're looking for the best bang for your buck, as well as the most effective way and easiest way for you to interact with your video games for years and years to come. Sure, new hardware is going to come out for Steam Deck as well as Nintendo. And Lord only knows if they're going to be doing backwards compatibility for the Nintendo Switch. If Nintendo decides to hold on to 100% backwards compatibility, that will be the nail in the coffin for the rest of the consoles moving forward. Steam is poised, or Valve has put themselves in a position to completely take over the console market, especially since consoles are losing money. These companies are losing money year over year and are bringing their games to PC. As long as the PC port runs on the Steam Deck, we are going to see less necessity for you to go out and purchase $500 machine boxes that are tied to one publisher's specific gaming library, and then also tying all of your game purchases to their management, which I would have never questioned until this past month. So these are my reasons why I think Nintendo Switch and Steam Deck are going to be the two best options for you moving into the next phase of gaming. Maybe not the Nintendo Switch as it stands, hopefully the Super Switch, but yeah, let me know in the comments how you feel about it. And if you agree or disagree, because I'd love to have that conversation with you. And if you like live streams, over on Twitch, I am live streaming the whole Final Fantasy series off of the Steam Deck. This is going to run every single game. All right, enough of that. And as always, happy gaming.